or mid-morning, depending on where you're dialing in from. We're so excited to share this next hour with you all. I know folks will kind of continue to trickle in as we get going, but since it's the top of the hour and I want to be mindful of your time, we'll go ahead and jump right in, and folks will catch up as they come in. So I know we're already a few weeks into 2026, but the window for reflection and intention setting definitely doesn't close on January 1st. In fact, with everything happening in the world around us, many of us are feeling the pull to reconnect to our values, to our communities, and to the parts of ourselves that we want to contribute in a meaningful way. If you're joining this session feeling a little heavy or with questions about how to turn your concern into contribution, you're definitely not alone there. Many people come to Taproot because they care deeply, because the social landscape sometimes feels overwhelming, and because they want to do something real, something helpful, something aligned with who they are. And I definitely want to begin by acknowledging that today, knowing that there's intentions in the room in terms of wanting to give back and connect with your community. And it matters that you're here. It matters that you've carved out this time. It matters that you're looking for ways to show up for the causes and communities that are on your heart and that you care about. And today is really about that. It's about taking that spark, your desire to help, to use your skills for good, and turning it into something sustainable. So, we'll talk about how you can build pro bono consulting into your routine in a way that supports your growth and strengthens the nonprofit organizations doing critical work every day. By the end of this hour, our hope is that you'll walk away with some pieces and tips for a plan that feels doable, energizing, and grounded. Ways to turn service from that aspiration or this idea that we want to do more of into a steady practice that contributes to a thriving and resilient social sector. So that's kind of the bedrock of what we'll get into today. And I'll share our agenda as we get started. But before getting too far into the presentation, I wanted to mention some logistics just to keep in mind as we continue. So I'm joined by my colleague, Kristen Maiku, who will be supporting me behind the scenes. Kristen is a super integral part to making these events happen. So definitely wanted to give her some love and a huge shout out for her support. You'll note that you're not plastered on the screen like you might be in a Zoom call. Today's event is webinar style, so you don't have to worry about coming off mute or handling a camera. We'll handle the presentation. And your engagement will be largely through the chat today. So Kristen will help me by paying close attention to that chat, keeping track of any questions or comments that we might want to bring up again. She'll also share some resources where applicable, so definitely do keep your eye out for those responses. Another note, we've enabled closed captions, so subtitles are available. You can turn these on or off using the little gear icon or settings icon above the chat box. The event will be recorded, and we'll make sure to share out the slides that we're using today, that recording, and any additional resources in a follow-up email. So you don't need to feel like you have to capture everything as we're talking through today. There will be resources to come. In terms of questions or comments that you might have, we've built in some time at the end dedicated for these, but definitely don't hesitate to drop them in as we go. I know there was some that were also submitted in the registration, so we'll do our best to address those questions throughout, and if they don't get addressed, we'll definitely bring them up at the end. Definitely no question too small, so ask away. If at any point during our presentation you find yourself a little lost or you need help accessing something, please also use the chat for that, and we'll do our best to support you in that way. I'm also a big fan of chat engagement, so we'll get started with that with introductions here in a second. But I just wanted to thank you all again for being here, for wanting to make space for connection, service, and impact this year. And we'll go ahead and keep moving forward. Okay, so I'll get us started here. And again, speaking of the chat, wanted to dig into some introductions as kind of a warm up to our engagement for today. So, as I mentioned previously, this is a great opportunity for diving into a sense of community and connecting with other folks who are interested in giving back and donating their professional skills. So, we definitely want to lean into that. And I'd love to hear who's in the room today. And I'd love if you would go ahead and drop your name, maybe where you're joining us from, maybe a bit about your professional background or what piqued your interest in joining today in the chat. Similar to how Kristen went ahead and kind of started us off there in the chat. Please go ahead and do that. And you're also welcome to do a little bit of networking. We definitely welcome that. Recognize that this is a space for like-minded individuals. So if you want to drop your LinkedIn, you're definitely welcome to do that. And I see some people are typing, so I'll give you some time and I'll get us started. And so my name is Grace Litsu. I use she, her pronouns. I'm based in Chicago. And like many of you, I'm sure I'm trying to keep warm and stay cozy amid all the frigid temperatures. So definitely can relate to that if you're also in a space that was recently hit with some of the cold temperatures. At Taproot, I'm a manager on our pro bono services team, and my role really involves all things volunteers and volunteer community. So this event is right up my alley and is part of my goal to make sure that all of the pro bono consultants who come to us feel that they are supported and have the best access to resources possible to serve nonprofits. I'm always here to listen, assist, provide suggestions, anything you might need. And if you've created an account already, you might have started receiving emails from me. So I'm definitely excited to be able to give you a face behind the name. And after this webinar, you'll have access to my email, my LinkedIn, all of my contact information. So if you need anything, my door, colloquially, is always open, and I'm here for any help. So thank you all for those who have started dropping introductions in the chat. I'm seeing we've got people from New York, Doug from New York, some retired folks in the room, Kevin McCaffrey, who's here maybe from a government background. We also have some other Chicago area folks. I see you, Felicia. Lots of people jumping in with their background. Thank you all for doing that, and definitely keep it coming. All right, and as I said, I love an active chat. So whether you're introducing yourself or you're just asking questions, don't hesitate. Okay, so now that we've kicked things off and had a chance to warm up hearing a little bit from you all, I did promise to give a full overview of what we were going to cover in our conversation today. So I wanted to give you a bit of an idea of what to expect. And first, I know there's kind of a wide variety of people in their background or understanding with Taproot. So we'll start with doing more of a brief overview of who we are and what pro bono consulting actually looks like. This will really ground us in shared language and context that we can build upon for the rest of our time together. From there, we'll move into the heart of the conversation, which is what brought you all here to share some practical, doable tips to help you fit service into your 2026 routine. We'll kind of follow a similar formula with each tip that we share. I'll start by sharing a strategy. We'll dig a little bit deeper into some examples related to that strategy and what it can look like in practice. And then we'll try and build in a moment of reflection or some sort of engagement for each of you after all of those tips. By the end, you'll have the foundations for your own 2026 service plan is our goal. We'll talk through everything between goals and goal setting to our program offerings and picking the best fit for you, and also to some strategies to really making the case for your time to be dedicated to pro bono. Again, throughout the session, feel free to drop questions or reflections into the chat, and we'd love to make this as conversational as possible, given the webinar format, with engagement and a Q&A at the end. let's go ahead and dive in. Like I said, we'll start with some foundation setting or context setting. And I wanted to really ground us starting with the mission of Taproot. Taproot is a nonprofit ourselves, serving our fellow nonprofits. And some of you might know that we were founded in 2001, and our kind of reason or impetus for being founded was this knowledge that there's often a resource gap in the social sector. Organizations who are dedicated and coming up with really unique, innovative ways to serve their communities and address social challenges often don't have the financial means or staff capacity to carry out their missions to the fullest extent. So Taproot really jumps in there to kind of make sure that every nonprofit has accesses to resources regardless of their mission, budget size, or the years of operation. And this is our vision, is that one day all nonprofits will be able to kind of serve their communities, and beyond that, that there will be a thriving social sector to really help individuals in need and help us all thrive more. In terms of our programming, we kind of carry out this mission through three main buckets. So the first is Taproot Plus, which is likely what you're most familiar with. This is our free online platform. So if you've created an account, this is that interface that you've been engaging with. And this is the space where we connect professionals with nonprofits in need of capacity building support. So this is where you'll apply for opportunities. It's where you'll see what nonprofits are out there and what are the needs that they're seeking support for. And we'll dive into a little bit more of the program offerings in a little bit here. But we offer support on Taproot Plus in two main ways, and that's through projects and 1 hour consultation calls. So keep that tucked away in the back of your mind. We'll jump into that in one of the tips as we go. But that's the first bucket of our broader programming at Taproot. But our programming doesn't stop there. To fuel our work, Taproot partners with forward-thinking companies, foundations, and community organizations to design custom pro bono consulting programs. So this is our advisory services practice, and we've worked with over 100 Fortune 500 companies to match employee expertise with nonprofit need. And when our funding and priorities align, these programs may include sponsored team-based or local volunteer events. So definitely keep an eye out for those. I think I did see in the chat that we have some. I think Tracy is on the line. She's an alumni of a Taproot program through Wells Fargo. So welcome, Tracy. That's kind of, if you're curious about what her story was, that's falls under the advisory services practice. And then our kind of final bucket that we talk about, since we do exist to make it so that every nonprofit has access to that professional support. We are actively working to kind of work ourselves out of a job, so to speak, which brings us kind of to this last bucket of field building, which really involves advancing the pro bono movement by conducting sector research, creating educational resources, hosting community events such as this one, and really facilitating those connections to strengthen the pro bono ethic. And this is where you'll see if we have like reports or any information that comes out in blogs. This is our kind of field building arm. Okay, getting us maybe a little bit more tailored, I wanted to get us into our next audience participation opportunity. So since the top of the hour, I've probably mentioned pro bono consulting, service, volunteering, all of those kind of interchangeably. All are key to Taproot's work and to what brings you all here today. But I wanted to hear from you all. I'm curious what comes to mind when you think of the term pro bono consulting, especially since it can mean different things to different people. I'd love for you to share it in the chat, what or you would define as pro bono consulting. I'll give a minute for that. All right, so Christiana is shared providing skills from specialization areas for free. It's a good start for a definition. You're hitting on one of those key points that this is free in providing support to nonprofits without charging them for the expertise. We also have offering one's expertise with those who need help, providing professional skills without charge, providing expertise for free to help an organization grow. This is wonderful. Thank you. Definitely keep them coming if you're thinking of different definitions. And it sounds like almost all of you are experts already. So thank you so much for this participation and for sharing a little bit of how you think of pro bono consulting. And we're still seeing some more come too. Expanding organizations' capacity. Yeah, you're really hitting on the key that it's about growing an organization's ability to serve more people. Volunteering specifically with your skills. This is wonderful. Thank you so much. So as we think about at Taproot, what pro bono consulting is, y'all really hit it on the nose. We define it as a donation of one's abilities, talents, networks, and resources to social good organizations. We also refer to it as skills-based volunteering or SBV, but pro bono consulting is really what we're talking about in terms of our volunteer, how you would volunteer or engage with nonprofits. And Taproot is really on a mission to make pro bono a part of every professional's growth and routine. You might all be really familiar with pro bono from the legal field. Many of our counterparts that are lawyers, pro bono is a part of their annual practice. But at Taproot, we really believe that every professional has valuable skills that they can offer to support the social sector. And we're looking to make that as widely utilized in every field as it is in the legal field. And I wanted to touch on some of the benefits of pro bono, especially related to nonprofits. We'll get into what those benefits might look like for volunteers, but in particular for our nonprofits, it really is all about that added capacity. It's about helping the nonprofit leaders do what they do best by freeing up some space for them to serve their community, build their programming, and give them a little extra support with some of the things that you all might be experts in. Things like building out their accounting strategies, helping them think of their long term planning, giving them a little bit of support in those other areas. But outside of that, pro bono is also a really key community builder, and I touched on that at the beginning. This is really an area where both nonprofits and yourself are building your network. And while it's not expected, it's really common to see volunteers in nonprofits who've worked together develop really strong relationships that extend beyond their initial Taproot Plus engagement. And this is really one of my favorite parts of the work at Taproot. We've heard lovely stories about volunteers becoming advocates, donors, board members, and even staff members after working with an organization through Taproot. And this is really exciting. So that's definitely one of the maybe lesser talked about benefits to nonprofits, but definitely wanted to highlight here. It also just can't be understated how impactful pro bono can be beyond sharing valuable expertise. It has a really tangible financial value, and Taproot has established that the average hourly benefit of your donation of time and skills is equal to about $220 of a financial donation. So it definitely can go a long way beyond that kind of fuzzy, warm feelings that are associated with it. And for those of you who are numbers folks, here's an overview of Taproot by the numbers. Sorry for a little bit of a formatting issue here, but definitely gives you a sense of our scale and illustrates our commitment to mobilizing passionate individuals to serve social good organizations. A massive movement that we're really excited to bring you all along with. By attending, you're a part of it now. So definitely eager to have you keep going. And while, of course, the biggest opportunity and the biggest benefit from donating your professional skills is the joy of making a difference alongside folks who are working every day to make our communities stronger, kinder, and more just, there's more to it than just supporting the social causes that are near and dear to our hearts, although that is core to volunteering. This form of volunteering, pro bono consulting also offers the opportunity to learn more about social issues and innovative ways nonprofits are addressing those challenges. And so, what you're seeing on the screen is when we've asked volunteers to share what the benefits are after they've completed a project. This is some of the other areas that they've talked about. So, kind of fits under three buckets, and think about that from a personal fulfillment perspective, which really is that supporting important social causes piece. And then we also think about it from a professional growth perspective. It can be a really great way to build your portfolio, to expand your network, to practice skills in a way that you might not be able to in your everyday work. So it also has that kind of professional growth aspect. And then it also is a resume builder. It gives you experience to maybe fill or supplement gaps. And so that's definitely a benefit that we want to highlight. Um, these are what makes pro bono consulting unique. Not only does it provide support to nonprofits or organizations that you care about, but it also offers a really strategic role, or can play a really strategic role in your own growth. So definitely love promoting that or highlighting that. And we'll get into motivation, but it sometimes is overlooked when it comes to why you would engage in pro bono. And then I love just to take a moment to highlight the experiences of some of the folks who all have completed um, pro bono projects. We heard from one volunteer that they were a job seeker and they were looking to gain more experience and stay relevant. So it can be a great way to do that also while providing support to nonprofits. And then it was also an opportunity for folks to work with nonprofit leader. Great way to be able to help them out and learn a ton about the social sector as well. So kind of that two-way learning is really key to it. Love being able to highlight some stories. If you're interested in learning more about Taproot's philosophy or the work that we're doing, Kristen has dropped some things in the chat to help you dig a little bit deeper. You can always check out our website or our social media. We have lots of stories to highlight similar to those motivations. But I'd like to start transitioning us into thinking about pro bono in our own lives. So some of you shared in your introduction why you were interested in joining today, but I'd love to now hear a little bit more about motivations. So, your next opportunity to engage is to share in the chat your answer to what motivates you to donate your skills. What brings you to pro bono? We'll give a minute here as people start typing in those answers. I'm hoping people are also feeling kind of inspired by some of the motivations that we've seen from the benefits. Felicia answered, I'm happy to broaden my expertise while providing support to the nonprofit sector, orgs that support those in need. Really about giving back. Thank you, Alicia. I appreciate that. Looking to get more involved. So maybe you've started and you want to get a little bit deeper. Learning new perspectives. This is a really wonderful call out. Thank you, Tom. Camille mentioned broadening her own horizons and challenging her assumptions. Lauren mentioned um, creating local community impact. So maybe it's more about finding people in your own community and then learning from those experiences. Tracy mentioned mentoring and that this can be a great way to give back via that and leverage pieces of her career. This is wonderful. And I really appreciate you all being so honest and open and sharing about those motivations. I'm really inspired by these answers, and I hope you all are inspired by each other. Thank you for taking that time to share and continuing to engage. This motivation is really the backbone to goal setting and to routine building. So, understanding your why first is definitely a huge step to making the case for pro bono for yourself. So, if you ever throughout the presentation are struggling to think about like why you would want to do this or build time into it, definitely come back to this motivation piece. All right, so we'll go ahead and get us into our tips now that we're in the mindset of considering our own values and motivations for donating our professional expertise. So we'll start digging into some strategies to make this part of your 2026 routine and really start prioritizing it. So our first tip, as we were thinking about what would you want to know in order to really make this part of your routine, it might sound like a no-brainer, but our first tip is to track progress like any goal, and really create concrete goals around pro bono. So this involves setting dates, adding things to your calendar, following maybe a goal setting framework. Um, Really, that piece of what you write down gets done. And so, leaning into that, this is kind of maybe that more traditional beginning of 2026 mantra of how are we writing things down and really setting our intentions for the year ahead. And with that, I'm sure this will come as no surprise for you all. Let's talk SMART goals. This is something many of you have probably heard lots about before, probably not new. And I want to name that up front because it's not really something that we're trying to say is new, but this is often sometimes one of those frameworks where we know about it in theory, but it doesn't always feel like we can apply it in a meaningful, motivating way. And what we've seen at Taproot is that creating these goals really concretely gets a whole new kind of power when you apply them to service. So suddenly it's not just a work tool or it's not just an aspiration, it becomes a way to bring your values into your week. To anchor your good intentions in your calendar and to carve out space for this kind of contribution. And here's why this framework works, and I'm sure you've all heard this as well. But we know that when you write down your goals, you're 42% more likely to achieve them. So that's not just because writing magically solves everything, it's because it brings clarity, accountability, and visibility. When you put it on paper or in your calendar, it stops becoming abstract, and it becomes a commitment that you want to return to. So this is really something that we are trying to lean more into as we're not just talking about checking off boxes or writing down goals because it's aspirational, but we're talking about really making it actionable, measurable, and building in that celebration because this is something to really celebrate in terms of our work. And I wanted to give us a fun way to think about how to bring SMART goals into pro bono. So we've created a few different Mad Libs style fill in the blank kind of goals to bring this into the context of your own life. Remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about giving your values a practical, doable home in your own routine. So if you're playing along in the chat and you feel comfortable, you can try out these Mad Libs by filling in the kind of bold blank there. So one to start with, in 2026, I will use X skill superpowers to complete X number of sessions or projects by a certain date. Try and make it really specific, so I can become even better at maybe you have a professional development goal while helping nonprofits work on their mission or cause area. And then we want to call out if there's any barriers to that. My kryptonite or my main barrier is this, and I will defeat it through this strategy. So that's one way you can start to think about your SMART goals in terms of pro bono. And also keep in mind, we'll share this out. So if we're moving too fast for you to be able to actually fill this out in the event today, you'll definitely be able to get it afterwards and write that afterwards. Another one, every week or some period of time in 2026, you'll hold this many service holds or this many times in your calendar to complete either the browsing or some sort of part of the volunteer process. You can use it to sharpen specific goals or to make a difference on nonprofits in a specific area. I like this one because it really involves that celebration piece, making that kind of endpoint something to look forward to. So after you've completed your goal, you can look forward to something at the end of that with that reward at the end. I like the way that this looks at it in terms of kind of a cycle. I work through it by this time. I'm achieving this many, and then I come to an end by maybe I celebrate it with a LinkedIn post or something along those lines. Another one, just for the sake of fun, this last one is if future me wrote my LinkedIn, talked about maybe celebrating with a LinkedIn post, but think about if you were looking at the end of the year and you wanted to proudly write this post, how would you fill it in? This year I donated whatever number sounds best to you, pro bono hours focused on a specific topic or skill area, supporting nonprofits in this cause. To make this vision real, what are you committing to today in order to take that first step? So that's another way to move it into a practical goal. And I saw we have a few people who had put those into the chat as well. I would use my 2026 superpower skills till the 30th of March. So maybe that's you're setting a really strong endpoint where you know you can contribute your skills in this amount of time. I think that's really helpful to be able to do. And thanks for putting that in there. For the sake of time, we'll go ahead and keep moving forward. But just again, a call out that will share these out at the end. So if you want to have some fun with the Mad Libs yourself, you can do that as well. Our second tip here, we want to encourage you to choose the right format. So I had mentioned at the top as I was describing Taproot's program models that we have two ways for pro bono consultants to engage on the platform. One is through sessions, which are 1 hour consultation calls, and the other is through projects, which are usually 2 to 12 weeks in time, which require maybe about 3 to 5 hours per week. And what I'd like to note here is there's a time that works for everyone. And really, it's about finding the best fit for yourself. So if you're looking to kind of dip your toes in and just get started, sessions can be a great way to do that. But if you want to go for depth and you're looking for deliverables, projects can be a really great way to do that. And to get into a little bit more detail, we wanted to share kind of that side-by-side breakdown of the formats in more detail. On the left here, we're talking about sessions, which are those 1 hour calls. You're talking to a nonprofit for that 1 hour. It's quick, it's focused. The purpose is really to answer their specific question, to share advice on a specific challenge, or give resource recommendations. This is more of that kind of light touch offering, but a way where you can make an impact within a succinct amount of time. And then on the right here, you'll see a project. On the other hand, multi-week engagement, they can last between 2 and 12 weeks. So you're not committing to a board term or, longer than 6 months. And this is really best used for those bigger, more complex challenges that you'll work with a nonprofit on. These could involve maybe research, deliverables at the end of that engagement, and they likely require multiple meetings or check-ins with that nonprofit partner to carry out. To give you a sense of what the time commitment would be for projects and sessions, which can help you kind of tailor your goal. For sessions, you're really thinking about that 1 hour session as the main meat of the engagement. You might take 15 to 30 minutes to prepare before that session. And this would involve things like looking at any background information into the nonprofit, reading up on their challenge. So if they've asked for support related to setting up their accounting, but they don't want you to actually do it, they just want to understand the systems that are available to them, you might look more into that and develop a list that you could share. So that's what that prep might entail. You'll schedule the consultation call with them, have the 1 hour conversation, and then there might be about 15 minutes of follow-up. But really, you're looking at a pretty short amount of time. This is a great way to plug in if you're someone who has a really busy schedule and you're just looking for a high impact, succinct offering. On the project side, again, a little bit more depth here. It involves more of that prep. Rather than that 1 hour call, you'll have a 30-minute interview. And this is really just more of a conversation to understand the nonprofit need and get a better sense of what the scope of the project is. On the other end of that interview, you'll go into this kind of project planning or kickoff phase if you decide to work with the nonprofit. And this really involves narrowing down the details, when you're going to carry things out, setting up a project plan, and checking in with the nonprofit about expectations. And then after you've set it all up, ongoing, you might engage in about 3 to 5 hours of work per week, but that's an estimate and it's maybe on the high end. Ultimately, the timeline and the time frame will be decided by you, and we lean into you and your expertise in terms of carrying that out to the end. Okay, leaning into our kind of Mad Libs or fill in the blank style, we wanted to engage you in a reflection to think about your capacity. So we kind of mentioned a little bit of an overview of the time that would be needed for projects versus sessions. And so I wanted to share some questions that you might reflect on in order to help you think about which model is best for you. So think about in a typical week, do you have any flexible pockets? Are there an hour here and there every other month that you can grab? Are you in a space where you're in a bit of a slower period, or maybe summer is a slow period for you at work? Can you slot that into your calendar for the future? Is there an amount of work that you feel like you could add on to your general flow of work without adding stress? And kind of as you're thinking through these, can you think about the best format to start with? So for me, I have engaged in sessions because I have maybe an hour here and there that I can donate time to a nonprofit. And it helps to look at my calendar at the beginning of the month and say, oh, here's maybe a free space where I can add a session or engage in that. But I'd love to hear from you all. Are you thinking more about projects? Are you thinking more about sessions? What's sticking out in terms of the best format to get started? And I guess maybe this like poll will also help us think about that. What's the amount of time you think you can donate? And once you have figured out the amount of time, then you can start to think about what those projects or sessions look like. It looks like we're seeing some projects in here. We have a live poll coming up if you're able to. Sessions first, then projects. Thank you, Marilyn, for sharing that. Five to 8 hours is reasonable. I think, well, as you start to kind of engage with the projects and think about what you're able to offer, you can build that into your calendar. And really, this is meant to just get you started to think about the format that works best for you. And then you can start engaging with nonprofits and really start to figure out what works best in a live format. I love to see this come up live too. It looks like that 5 to 8 is a great basis. I know Tracy is sharing, she worked on a project basis and they set up a cadence of meetings, which works really well as you're getting started also. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end for this time. And we'll go back to our presentation. Thank you all for engaging in that intentional reflection there. Okay. Moving into our next tip, and this might be something that is new to you all, but we definitely encourage you to learn about and utilize your company's volunteer time off policy. So if you are unfamiliar with what volunteer time off is, I want to take a step back and kind of explain what that is. So, volunteer time off, also referred to as VTO, is a workplace benefit that allows employees to take paid time away from their regular job duties to volunteer with eligible nonprofits. So, it's similar to other forms of paid leave like PTO or professional development time, but it's specifically designed to be a form of engaging community service and promoting community service. Companies offer VTO as part of their corporate social responsibility and employee engagement strategies. And the goal is to make it easier for employees to contribute their skills, time, and passion to causes they care about without having to fit it into outside of work activities. If you're interested in learning more about volunteer time off, I definitely encourage you to reach out to your kind of HR professional in your area, or also maybe your manager could help direct you in the right place. But this is a benefit that if your company offers it, is likely being underutilized and can be a great way to make time if you don't already have it to do some pro bono. And I know it can sometimes feel really cumbersome and uncomfortable to find the right way to ask about volunteer time off or other HR policies if you haven't been told about them so far. So, for this reason, I wanted to share a sample of how you might make that ask so that you feel equipped to use this benefit. I'll move us on, but this is a resource that you can utilize following the presentation. Looking at our next tip, definitely we've talked a lot about professional development and creating goals here, but pro bono is really a practical lab for leadership, relationship management, creativity, all of the things that you would be valued in your professional world. So, tying pro bono into your professional goals is a really key way to be able to build it into your routine and make space for it. Um, in particular, wanted to highlight some ways your goals might translate into specific engagement. So, if you had a goal to build your graphic design portfolio and you were looking for ways to add things to that portfolio, you might take on a social media content calendar project. So, as you're browsing, you might look for spaces where a nonprofit is asking for graphic design support specifically. They're asking for you to create something using Adobe or Canva. That could be a really great way for you to start adding things to that portfolio that you could share with others. Another goal, if you were looking to demonstrate research and proposal skills, which is often a really sought after business skill, you might look at grant research projects. And this is a great space to highlight. You don't have to be an expert in a nonprofit specific area in order to offer your expertise. If you're someone who is really good at Googling, is really good at digging into community sources or problem solving, and want to kind of deepen that, looking for things like grant research projects could be a great opportunity for you to demonstrate that skill. And if you're someone who wants to do some live troubleshooting and problem solving, kind of that on the fly thinking that's often hard to have exposure to developing, those 1 hour calls are really perfect for live brainstorming, thinking of problem solving on the fly, and that can be a really great way to practice those skills as well. All right, your turn. So, thinking about goals or skills that you want to strengthen in 2026, what are people in the room thinking of in terms of your professional development? Is there a skill that comes to mind that you're like, the reason I'm coming to pro bono is because I want to grow my marketing skills? Love to hear from you all. We could go back to those motivations too. I know there was folks who shared a lot about their just donating skills in general. I think there was some mentorship involved. It looks like research and writing is definitely one. General consultation skills is definitely something that's exactly what those 1 hour calls are built to do. So thank you, Felicia, for sharing that. management skills, project planning. So, kind of regardless of what the outcome is, being able to put a timeline to it, that's definitely a great skill for this. Marketing expertise, writing, so being able to do some copywriting. These are all areas where you can get some really tangible experience through sessions and projects to be able to grow those skills. So thank you all for sharing what you're looking to grow. Applying AI knowledge, that's definitely a big one. Um, and that's an area where I'm sure we'll start to see more projects and sessions be posted. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. Um, One other tip we wanted to highlight is that you don't have to carry the burden of the hours and time that go into projects alone. So if you're looking, this can be again a great way to connect with other people. And we encourage you to invite a friend to share the load. If you need to build in some extra time, it can be great to bring in a colleague, or maybe you have a mentor that you want to bring in, or even if you're someone who is a mentor and you want to bring in a mentee that you're working with, or someone who's maybe not directly on your team, but that you work closely with. Inviting a friend is a great way to share the load and make it a little bit more approachable. We just ask that if you are going to invite a friend, that you communicate directly with the nonprofit so that they're aware that you're planning to engage someone else with this. And then also please reach out to the Taproot team through the help desk so we can help kind of facilitate the back end version of that. But inviting a friend is a great way to make sure that you have the space to really dedicate the time that you need. And also can be a great way to kind of share the wealth, share the learnings that you're getting from this with other folks as well. And kind of similar to that HR ask, wanted to provide some language that could be helpful in terms of asking someone to come along with you. So if you're hoping to invite a peer, you might just share the what you're doing and talk about splitting it equally to bring them into the work. Maybe you're a mentor and you want to bring a mentee in, and you can kind of frame it in terms of wanting to help that mentee grow their own work professionally, inviting them to do it with you. If you're someone who has a mentor and you maybe are really interested in demonstrating a skill, but you want a little bit of extra help or a sounding board, bringing a mentor into this kind of project can be a really great way to again share the load, but also feel more confident in the work that you're doing, because often that can feel a little daunting to jump in. Imposter syndrome is definitely a factor when it comes to pro bono, and we just want to recognize that and recognize that there are opportunities and supports out there to get help. Um, in terms of our last tip here, and this is kind of that bedrock of everything through Taproot. Trust is the foundation to success. And so once you have connected with a nonprofit, really setting yourself up for those clear expectations and clear communication is key to having a successful deliverable and a successful project. So make space to discuss time commitment and expectations up front. And don't be afraid to set some boundaries in terms of what your time limit is. So a lot of people mentioned they might have that 5 to 8 hours, or maybe they're just in here to offer their time for that 1 hour right now. Make sure you're really clear about that, because that will help both you and the nonprofit understand where you're going. And to help you out with that, we have kind of a sample communication manual here. So, as you're talking to a nonprofit, you might want to identify some of those logistics, especially for projects upfront. So, if you're going to be engaging with more than one volunteer, this is a great place to identify primary point of contact. If the nonprofit is potentially bringing someone in to the work on their end, this was a great place to talk about that. Setting up a cadence. I know Tracy mentioned having a couple times every other week or some version of check-ins. This is a great way to cover those. If you have like specific requirements in terms of how you meet after that initial interview, this is a great place to talk about those preferences. also talking about, are you an email, phone call, text person? This is just kind of that template for getting those all of those logistic pieces out in the open as you get started. And that really wraps up the meat of our conversation today. We talked through 6 tips that I'll briefly recap here. We talked about SMART goals and setting up your goals with pro bono related and service into them. We talked about choosing the right format, whether that's sessions or projects to start based on your availability. We talked about utilizing the benefits that you might have, like volunteer time off, to build in some extra capacity, bringing in friends to share the load, tying it to your professional development if you have specific goals related to that, which I saw coming through in the chat. And then, really, that end piece of building trust and communication from the get go. So, thank you so much for your audience participation and engagement. And I see there's a couple questions coming through. So we'll go ahead and move into that portion. But I just, again, wanted to thank you all for your time. If you have to jump off now, that's fine too. And you'll get the recording in the PowerPoint afterwards. Starting with the questions I see in the chat here. So Zoe asked, is there a way to invite other Taproot volunteers to share the load on longer projects? So currently there's not like a matching mechanism in Taproot Plus where you could kind of have an open call for other volunteers to support. But if you have someone in mind, a peer or someone who might be a colleague you're looking to get more connected to, this could be a great way to send them an email, invite them into the project. It's a good way to share. Zoe, to your point, sometimes those longer projects might need just someone else to come in and split up things with. So definitely think about if you have peers or people in your network that you want to bring in. And if you're someone who maybe you are interested in connecting outside of that, definitely reach out to our team and we can see if there's ways to facilitate that in kind of an ad hoc way. Another question, if you can't find the role you're trying to volunteer for, what do you do? I recommend, I think this was maybe related to auditing and cybersecurity roles as well. I think a lot of the web development or kind of starting recommendation projects can be a good place to start for that. I also recommend looking at sessions because if you're not finding a specific project related to a skill, maybe you can kind of help a nonprofit see how the work that you do could support a need that they're having. So maybe think a little bit more broadly about the skill that you're trying to donate. Cybersecurity is often something that is hard for nonprofits to think about. That might not be their main focus. So if there's ways that you can kind of broaden that skill set or think about it from kind of more of a bird's eye perspective and start with sessions, that's definitely my recommendation for that. Alicia asked, how often are new opportunities posted? We post new opportunities daily. They do get reviewed by our team, so they go through that process, but it's meant to be really on demand. So we are constantly putting new opportunities onto the website. The presentation will be available not only to you, but also we'll post it to our website. So it will be under resources and then webinars and recordings. So other people can see it as well. And we'll likely share it out on our social media as well. And I see a question about teams where like Taproot facilitates the team connections. We don't currently have a mechanism for that because we are engaging in a way where we want people to be able to independently connect. But Zoe, we do have periodically we'll have events where we reach out to our volunteer network and put together cohorts, kind of dependent on funding. So keep your eye out for those. They'll kind of pop up through our events page on the website, and we'll advertise really openly about those when the opportunity comes. And then in terms of browsing opportunities, finding where those projects are posted, I'll lean on Kristen to see if she can pull the link for that, and I'll switch to looking at some of our pre-submitted questions. We had a question submitted before the event around targeting a skill and kind of seeing if that skill or value is specifically highlighted in a specific opportunity. So those the skills that are related to an opportunity are on kind of the left as you're browsing through opportunities. You can also select specific skills when you're looking for them to find skills that are related to a project. So if you're looking to gain a specific experience, that's a great place to start, is by searching on the opportunities page or filtering based on that skill. Another question that was listed beforehand, messages that people struggle to communicate. I think messaging is a great skill to be able to offer, and our nonprofits are often looking for support in terms of how do I clarify my messaging. That can be a great skill to jump in with offering nonprofits. I am seeing more about like the team-based opportunities. It's something that we're actively considering. So one of the great things about Taproot is we're very flexible in terms of our program offerings. And so I am hearing the feedback. I love that y'all are thinking about ways where you can get in touch with other volunteers, especially as it might have been in the past. And I will definitely bring this back in terms of our program models, and see if there's things or room where we can build that in. I know we're almost at time, so I'm trying to make my way through any lingering questions, if there are any, but just wanted to give that reminder that we will follow up with the resources. I know Kristen dropped in a survey related to the event. If you do have a couple minutes to fill that out, that would be greatly appreciated. We'll also send that in the follow-up email. It would be really great to just learn how you experience this event and if there are other topics you would like us to touch on, so we can really tailor these to be the best use of your time, because we want that to be helpful. Let's see. Thank you all so much for your time today. Reach out if there's anything I can help you with. And if there's not any other questions, I'll go ahead and give you your time back this afternoon. Thank you all.